Well, good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to be back. George Morgan here at your service. It's PSGL, it's Wednesday night, it's Spain tonight as well. Lots on the table, lots of battling. The title contest is still alive and kicking. And Jack, it's only taken us 10 rounds. We're on the 11th. It's all to play for.
Boromant goes on the inside and takes the lead on the final lap of the race. Now it's side by side between Boromant and Warner, but Boromant's got the inside.
Here in this phenomenal race, Cameron Dowd looking to take P2 in his very first PSGL F1 PC race. Incredible to say the least. You see that Putin still lead. 1.5 seconds. DRS is the name.
Good evening everyone and welcome back to the PSGL YouTube channel for round number 6 of this PC TF2 season. Tonight we venture to the far east of the globe to the place known as the Sunrise Land. It is of course Japan, where we head to the Suzuka circuit this evening. A historic and iconic track. Suzuka has been home to some of F1's greatest dramas, with undulation and elevation change all around this track, which should make for an incredible race tonight. My name is Dan Field. I'm back in the commentary box this evening, but I'm always being joined by Nathan Richards. Nathan, how are you doing?
Hello, yeah, I'm doing great. I'm tired, but hopefully this race will wake me up a bit. From what we saw last night in F1, it was a great race, and from what we've seen so far this season in F2, we've had very great races, so I think tonight should yet again be another grandstand finish in this championship. this track, when it comes to qualifying, quite close. Lots of different aspects around this track. You've got slow speed, high speed, and obviously you've got to make sure you dedicate yourself to one or the other, or have to go into the middle. So then you might not be quick in one place, you might not be quick in the other. So yeah, that's where we'll see the differentiation around this track, unlike many others. So yeah, I think it'll be quite interesting. The grid yet again really strong, and still that championship fight very, very close.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this season so far has just been incredible to watch. It's been so close throughout the entirety of it. I'm just going to quickly go on my laptop here and then grab the standings, because unfortunately haven't got a graphic this evening, but if you just give me one moment, I will get it up very shortly. There we go. So leading the championship on 55 points at the minute is Mirko Soriano after taking P3 in Austria. He's going to extend his championship lead to Jack West in second, who sits on 49 points at the minute. With the win, Joseph Loke goes into third position on 36 points. Duncan Hoffland, he will maintain that P4 position despite not starting in the Austrian Grand Prix. Tamas Gal in 5th position on 24 points, and then Andrei Tarabukin 6th on 15. Flores Fires and Legend Rosenberg 6th, 7th and 8th on 14 points each. Jan Haladej on 12, and then rounding out the top 10 is Rishan Jacobs, getting his first points of the season last time out in Austria with a P2 finish. Max Wiesel just sitting outside the top 10 in 11th, with Xander Van Dijken in 12th. Joost Noordijk 13th on 9 points, same as Ben Shabakony in 14th. Harvey Cohen is 15th on 8 points. Tycho Hardy is 16th on 7. Sergio Sabrino on 6. Timo Zelenkovic 5. Daniel Koyer's got 4. 3 for Chanakinchi. The last driver to score points this season is Kamil Stacker, Shimon Lukomski, Jona Martins, Yannick Schmidt, Matthew Older and Declan Barrett. All still yet to get points this season. That is all 26 drivers that we have seen so far this season. But at the moment, at the top of the order, 6 points is the gap between Mirko Soriano and Jack West. It is looking very tight once again.
It is, and yet again, as we've said many times this season, 2 drivers were quite surprised with these, Floris and Max, who I thought should be challenging for the top, for the top 3, top 5 in the championship. But Floris on 14 and Max only 3 points behind on 11. That is quite a shock. So hopefully over this second half of the season they can try and make something work and figure out what they've done wrong in this first portion, because when you're this far back, the gap's what, about 30 points. When you're that far back, that is, it's quite a big of a gap, and then at that point there is something you're obviously doing wrong, whether that's the fact you're not getting the right practice in, you're not practicing enough, or maybe it could be something to do with the setup, or the fact that every track we've drove on you don't like. So yeah, that's something they've got to think about. And also, obviously, with Duncan back tonight, he's going to obviously try and charge for that championship, and also charge after Joseph Loke, who obviously overtook him in the standings after winning last time out in Austria. So, yet again, those two also looking to gain in on the championship. And Tamas Gal, who had a pretty poor start, is starting to slowly work his way up, so he could also be fighting for that top 3, top 4 spot in the championship. So, still, even ignoring the top 2, it's still a very close championship.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, there is still a lot of drivers that have so far they've had a pretty disappointing season. Joost Noordijk is a name that jumps out to me. I believe he's a former PSGL PlayStation champion way back in, I think. Was he champion? Someone's going to have to fact check me on that. It was around that season 27-28 time. I know that it was Wilson Hughes and Duncan Hoffland. Those guys were fighting out as well in and around that time. It was also long ago, but yeah, I definitely think that Joost Noordijk, who's unfortunately not racing this evening, he's had a bit of a disappointing start, but we are getting on in the season. It's already round number 6 out of 12. We are reaching the halfway point after this evening, so it is really looking like a 2-horse race at the moment. Although Duncan Hoffland, I do hope that he can have a good race if we can have 3 drivers fighting it out for the F2 championship. Joseph Loke, I don't know if he is racing today. He's in the Williams today, so yeah, this is it is an incredibly close championship. One bad race for Mirko Soriano or Jack West can really invite the likes of Duncan Hoffland and Joseph Loke into the championship fight, so it is still very exciting. And around a track like Suzuka, where, Nathan, it is so tricky around here to get it absolutely perfect, I think we're going to see a few guys have some slip-ups.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think in qualifying it's quite a difficult track, especially when you push into the limits. Track limits around here aren't always an issue, but a lot of it is. The fact of around here, you see many drivers don't have much grip, especially through that first sector. It's very easy just to touch that curb a little bit too much on the inside and spin the car around, especially also going up the Dunlop curve as well. There you can lose a lot of the rear. So it's quite a it's quite a demanding track. So I think we'll see many people make issues on their laps, and we'll see many people probably not qualify where they should be. And then when it comes to the race itself, it's not the easiest track to go side by side on. So I think we'll also probably see some sort of instance with drivers, whether they're big incidents or whether they're just little taps, bit of contact, which could cause a little bit of damage. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I think looking into this, it's the track I'm probably on this kind of most interested for, because it's a track that I think compared to many others is literally like no other. There's no other tracks that have this similarity that this track has, these features.
Well, Suzuka is the only circuit on the Formula 1 calendar that is actually in a figure of 8, because of course when you go off of the exit of Degner 2, you're going underneath the circuit, I believe, when you're heading in towards 130R. It's a really cool track. I mean, this is one of my personal favourites to drive. I know some guys, they don't like it. It is a hard track to get absolutely perfect, but it's just so satisfying when you hook that first S's section up absolutely perfect, then you get it right in towards the Dunlop curve, then the double right-hander. It's so fast around this circuit. Then of course you've got that heavy braking zone into the hairpin, which I think could be a place where we're going to see a few overtakes this evening. I mean, if they're brave enough to go down the inside. And so far what we've seen this season, Nathan, is that PCF2, they really don't give, they just don't give anything. They don't care. If they want to go for the move, they're going to go for the move. But if you can hear what we've got in the background now, you'll know that we are in qualifying. We will join you at the end of a quick word from our sponsors at GT Omega. Welcome back trackside, everyone, here in qualifying as we await the first laps to come out. Already a few drivers out on circuit, both Ferraris, one of the Haas drivers of Jack West and Joseph Loke as well. A lot of the championship hopefuls actually coming out really early here at the minute, but the first man out on circuit is Jona Martins. And Nathan, so far Jona has had a very disappointing season. He was away for the first few rounds. I believe it was rounds number 1 to 3 I think he missed, but so far he's yet to get off the mark, and I'm hoping for his sake Suzuka is a turning point.
Yeah, definitely. Jona's a great driver, obviously also an engineer for Ferrari, so I think he should definitely be one of those fighting for some decent points, maybe not always wins, but as you saw, I think it was last season in F2, he was at one point, or F3, he was looking for the championship. He had a couple of wins, a couple of good podiums, but then it kind of all fell away after his incident in Monaco. But still is a driver that we should expect to see, in some good points. So hopefully he can try and figure something out, and maybe obviously, with Barry and Nico racing around here last night, he can try and figure out, what they did that worked, and try and, use that for his own advantage as well. And if you notice that Rishan has retired, that is because he got a quali ban after impeding, I think it was Joseph Loke in Austria. So he has got a qualifying ban. They have to serve this race. So he will be starting in 20th, considering everyone behind him sets a lap.
Yeah, fingers crossed they all got a lap done, because of course, it's only one shot qualifying hit. Well, it's not one shot qualifying, but there's only one session. Of course, it does say Q1 in the top left, but it is only this 18-minute session. So in 15 minutes time, Nathan, we're going to find out who is on pole position. We'll find out where Jona Martins can put his first lap on the board. We'll have a look as he approaches turn number 1. This is a fantastic first corner where it's completely flat in towards the first part. Then you have to hit the brake ever so slightly, turning in towards the right hand side of turn number 2. Run it out wide on the exit through here, and then get ready for the S's. We'll ride on board with Jona Martins through here, just kissing every single apex. Don't ride it too much, otherwise you'll dissettle the car and go for a spin. A little bit of a downshift in towards turn number 5, and then uphill for turn number 6 at Dunlop. So tricky to get it absolutely right. It's very easy to run wide and go into the gravel. There's a Mercedes car just ahead of Jona Martins. He brushes over the curb on the inside of Degner 1. A little bit of a lock-up, I believe, in towards Degner 2. I wonder if, I believe it's Matthew Alder, put off Jona Martins ever so slightly, but nevertheless, through the hairpin he comes, and off the exit. He's looked a little bit scrappy on this lap so far, but he's kept it on the road, and he's kept it valid, Nathan.
He has. He's done a very good first couple of sectors as he heads down towards Spoon Curve. that turns 13 and 14. You want to use as much curb as you can, but we know that around here the curbs can be lethal. So yes, you want to use them for rotation on the corner exits and entries, but you need to make sure you don't use them too much, otherwise your car will just spin round. As heads down to the end of this second sector, a few cars sitting ahead. Luckily they will move through. 109.666 for the middle and first sector split. In towards the final couple of corners at the Casio Triangle. Just throw the car in, use as much curb as you can, bounce over those apexes, and there you head up towards the line. What will it be for Fiona Martins? It will be a 26.020. Very nice banker.
Yeah, we'll see if it is enough to fight with some other rivals. His teammate for the evening goes 5 thousandths quicker off the exit. We've got, I believe, Jack West in the final few corners at the Casio Triangle. Currently fighting for the championship. Gets a little bit squirrely off the exit of the Casio Triangle. Unfortunately, I think that's his lap. Going to be potentially in the bin or come across the line still. It's 1 minute 26.096 from him. So a very nice time from Jack West. He recovered it well, making that mistake. We'll see what Max Vital can do, as Szymon Lakomski is the first man to set a 1 minute 25 of the session, and Max Vital immediately is going to trump that by 300ths of a second. Very nice time from him indeed. We've got Xander Van Dyken off the exit of the final corner now. He'll slot himself onto the second row in P3. Then Tamas Gao will be the next one to come across the line, and it's going to be 4th place for now. 1 minute 25.920. A few guys I'm seeing struggling though to get their laps done and dusted, as we'll see Duncan Hoffman. He's coming through Spoon now, and I'm wondering if this lap is going to be a good one for him.
Yeah, well, I thought when Mirko put his time, I know he's only 5 tenths quicker than you, and this must be a very decent time, but now you realise that's over 2.5 tenths off Wiesel and Lakomski, so they've got a lot of work to do, the Ferraris have, and Duncan is now just coming down in towards the Casio Triangle. We'll see what he can set on his lap time. Many people in the 0.9s and 0.7s, and we'll see. Can Duncan put himself there? I think that was Zernkiewicz that put himself into the top 5, along with Jan Halliday, and the other Aston Martin, Duncan Hoffman, pops himself into the top 10, and that was Tycho Hardy just into the top 5 with a 25.992. Daniel Kerr, his teammate, comes up to the line and goes into P13 with a 26.232. Matthew Alder, he's coming through, he's invalidated, and Joseph Lowe, I think, is the final one, but he's let off his lap. So, very interesting start, and obviously Xander Van Dyke, if you remember, took pole in Brazil, and he's currently sitting P3 here, which I think so far is probably, apart from that first race, his best qualifying position at the moment, if he can keep it, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's still early doors in the session. We've got 12 minutes left to go, so we're a third of the way through already. A few drivers struggling to get their laps done. Matthew Alder, Kamil Stackerer, Ben Jabot-Conny, Andrei Tarabukin. I think the big name here, Joseph Loke, not getting a lap done. It's not the end of the world at the minute. You're still going to have time for around about 2 more runs in this session. However, just that, making that mistake and invalidating on your lap, it's going to give you a little bit of wariness heading in towards the next 2 runs, and that's something you don't really want, because of course you just want to be attacking every single corner that you can, and have confidence in your ability to set that lap cleanly. And if you have not got that confidence, then you're not going to be as quick as you are. So I definitely think that those guys are going to be a slight disadvantage heading in towards the last few parts of this session. I'm trying to see if I can find anyone on a lap as Ben Jabot-Conny retires in the pit, and I wonder if there was a quali ban for him, but I didn't read anything of it. But at the moment, Nathan, no one appears to be on a lap.
Yeah, I don't remember something about Ben Jabot-Conny having a qualifying ban. Oh no, he has got a qualifying ban. Sorry, he got it after impeding Rishan in round 5. So Rishan gets one for impeding Joseph, and then Benz gets one for impeding Rishan. So both of those should be starting at the back, but at the moment they're not going to start at the back because Kamil, Andre and Joseph haven't set lap times. Matthew Alder's out on track, but he's heading back into the pits, and so is Daniel and Legend. If you notice as well, Tycho, Daniel and Legend all have PSI in their name. That's because Talent Factory shut down, and they've now all moved over to Paradox Sim Racing PSR. So the I think a bit more known on the PlayStation side and Xbox, but getting their presence a little bit more on PC, and having some very good drivers in that team. Jack West is going to be the first, however, to set should be the first to set a lap time in this second part of qualifying. 10 minutes remaining, and still it's Max Wiesel ahead of the whole field.
I don't know all these new teams. I'm going to be honest. I'm old now in the F1 League racing scene. Bring back CRG and VRT, Vortex Racing Team. I know there's a new VRT on the scene at the minute, but Vortex is that's the OG. And we'll see all these guys with their old PlayStation names and their Xbox users. I'm trying to think who had what, because it is weird now to be using their real names in commentary, I find, because you know, for so long, Nathan, when I was on the PlayStation platform, I was
Yeah.
using all of their usernames and stuff, and now it's like we're commentating on the real F1 esports scene. So yeah, it's always fun to see these guys. But I'm trying to think who was actually known as what. I know that Jack West was Sparks, which was quite funny because Wilson Hughes was also known as Sparks, but they spelt it a little bit differently, and I think everyone gave Jack a little bit of shtick for you know, copying Wilson's name, but I don't think he did at all, actually. I think he had that for quite some time. But yeah, I don't know really what I'm waffling about. We're just waiting for Jack West to get his outlap over and done with, and then hopefully he's going to set a little bit of a better time than a 1 minute 26.0, because for Jack West standard, Nathan, I'd say that is not a good time whatsoever.
Definitely not, and considering the top three, the top four in the championship, which is Mirko, Jack, Joseph and Duncan, all are quite low down to where there should be none of them higher than P8, and that's Mirko in 8th. There we go. The restarts. Mirko gets a penalty, which obviously means we'll have a restart after qualifying, which is something we've had every single race this season, I think, and probably for every single race we still have to continue through in this season, which is quite a shame. But Jack West is coming at the final corner to begin his second run of qualifying, currently in P10 with a 26.096, and Dan, hopefully he can get himself in towards that top 5.
We'll see what Jack West can do as he approaches turn number 1. We'll ride on board with him as he's going to go completely flat out through this first right-hander, shifting down into 4th and getting the power down as early as possible off the exit of turn number 2 and in towards the S's section where you really do attack the curb through here. Be a little bit wary of this one on the inside. On the next right, you don't want to touch that. It can send you into complete spin. Is now up the hill through the Dunlop Club. Use all the curve on the exit through there. Flat out in towards Degner 1 and Degner 2 at the end of the first sector. We'll see his improvement to about 700ths of a second, 3/4 of a tenth. Very nice indeed for Jack West thus far as he's maximum commitment in towards Degner 2. He's purple in that first sector actually. Is in towards the hairpin. He got the drift wrong, and I think he's unfortunately completely put that lap down the drain. He's going to keep going, but I think, Nathan, he's lost a lot of time with that correction there.
He has, but with the way that the game works, I wouldn't be surprised if somehow we gain 2 seconds. Drifting for some reason, even if it looks really slow, gains you a lot of time, but it seems so far he's still continuing the lap, so we'll see what he does at the end of this second sector. It was a 75,000th improvement in the first. In the second, it's a 10th down, so only lost a tenth of a second. That's a surprise. I thought he would have lost more than that.
It is unfortunate though for Jack West. I don't think he's going to be able to claw back much time on that lap. Let's check in on what have you ordered? Yannick Schmidt, I believe he's coming through the final few corners now, and he's up by almost 2/10 of a second through the Casio triangle and off the exit of the final corner. We'll see what he can do. Currently sitting in P12. Is it going to be? No, it's not going to be pole for the time being. It is P3 for Yannick Schmidt. Decent enough. I was watching his teammate Joseph Loke, who's actually gone purple in that second sector there.
Yeah, we'll see what he can do. He's took that purple away from Yannick. He comes down in towards the Casio triangle. His teammate's in P3 with a 25.859. Can he try and replace that P3 from his teammate up to the line for Joseph? It is pole by 2/10 of a second.
Yeah, very nice indeed.
What a time.
Yeah, that is incredible from Joseph Loke. However, Mirko Soriano's not finished as well. We've got some more guys coming across the line. I think Timur Zelenkovic has put himself into P4. Someone else come across the line. I think it was Andrew Tarabukin in 15th. We're watching Mirko Soriano, the championship leader, come through the final corner now and off the exit. We'll see what he can do. It's second row of the grid for him, just behind Max Wiesel, who recently set his lap. Very nice indeed. Then for the championship leader, there's a McLaren coming to the line. That'll be Legend Rosenberg, I believe, just getting his lap started. Aston Martin in the final few corners. That's Duncan Hoffland to the line, and that's a 1 minute 25.695. Gets himself onto that second row of the grid. Very nice time from him there, getting ahead of his former PlayStation rival, Mirko Soriano. And Duncan Hoffland, I'm hoping that he has a good race today, because if he is able to outscore both Mirko Soriano and Jack West, then Nathan, he's got a real chance of taking the fight to these guys.
He has, but he's got to remember, Joseph Loke's sitting ahead of him quickly by 2 positions, and Joseph is 5 points ahead, so he's got a lot of work to do. The gap between P3 and 4 is 5 points, and the gap between P1 and 2 is also 5 points. So very close either way in that top 4. But Joseph for the pole position will be great. Obviously Max as well in P2, currently sitting on 11 points. I believe he's in 14th or something like that. So he definitely needs a podium or a win. Today he took pole in Bahrain, but his strategy did not pay off. He dropped down to about 7th or 8th on the grid, so it didn't end well at all for him. So yeah, it's decent from him. Duncan in third and Mirko in fourth. That's very nice as well. And also, for the first time, AlphaTauri having a very good qualifying, sitting fifth and seventh is Simon and Camille. So yeah, it's quite an interesting top 10 so far.
If you remember Silverstone, I think Shimon was on pole position there, and he got disqualified in the session.
Yeah.
But no one, so he wasn't
yeah.
able to do his final lap, but no one was able to beat him anyway, so he started on pole position. Of course, that race went completely down the toilet for both AlphaTauri drivers. I think Camille also qualified quite well. But yeah, Shimon's still yet to score this season. But starting from fifth on a circuit, which I think is quite difficult to overtake on. You know, he's got a decent chance of it this evening as everyone's coming back into the pit lane now. Gotta say, the big disappointment so far this session, Jack West. Currently on a 1 minute 25.987. He's over 0.4 of a second off the back of the current pole time, which is set by Joseph Loke. And that is something where your championship rivals are first, third and fourth. Being down in 11th, Nathan, is far from ideal.
Yeah, it's not ideal at all. But in Austria, he went from 18th to 4th. He did a tremendous job. So I don't think he'll be starting that low down, and I don't think around here it's that easy to get back up the field. But hopefully, he can put himself a decent time. He did quite well in his first run. Obviously, invalidated the second one, or made a note it was a mistake, wasn't it, down at the hairpin. So that's what ruined that one. He was up as well in the first sector. So hopefully he can put himself into the top 5. Maybe with obviously that invalidation, it's kind of hampered his chance of getting himself a position for pole. But Joseph sitting a 10th over to Max around here, and with this grid, a 10th of a second between the top 2 is quite a big gap.
Joseph Loke, he's smashed it out of the park with that lap, and I think it is going to be very difficult for anyone to actually beat that one this evening. However, we do have a few guys who are very quick in qualifying on this grid. I was going to say Flores Vires, but he's actually not here this evening, which is quite unfortunate. I know he's really quick around qualifying. Max Wiesel, of course, still can find the improvement to get ahead of Joseph Loke. Duncan Hoffman, we know he's good in qualifying. Shimon Lokomsky as well. It is far from over in this session with just over 2 minutes to go. But if you're Joseph Loke at the minute, Nathan, you're going to be very pleased with the position you're in.
Definitely, and I think at this point now he doesn't need to. Well, obviously he'll want to push, but he knows now if he does lose his lap time due to an invalidation or a mistake, he knows he's not going to drop down, tremendously far. So he's got a bit of a buffer that many other people haven't. If you're likes of Jan, who's just got a penalty, you're down in 13th. You know that one mistake now could put you down in towards 17th and 18th position because of how far you are from pole. So yeah, he's got a lot of work to do in the session. So as everyone will say, probably down from 4th down of. Yeah, got a lot of time to gain as Jan's the first one on who will be starting a lap, and I believe it's one of the AlphaTauris behind, and then one of the McLarens. Obviously, Rishan and Bench, if you didn't know, have got qualifying bans from impeding in Austria, so hence why they are starting 19th and 20th. So those are also 2 drivers who are decently quick. Rishan got a podium last time in Austria, so yeah, they've got a big challenge to go through the field and another penalty. So yeah, definitely a restart.
Yeah, I think we'll just have to ignore these grid penalties. Luckily, on the classification, they appear in the position that they actually are. Then it has the penalty on the side. But on this lap, whilst Jan Haladej is getting his run underway, I'm going to be watching Joseph Loke, current pole sitter at the minute. We'll see what he can do as he approaches the final few corners. You can see how bunched up this pack is. That's why everyone's getting these grid penalties. And I'm wondering, obviously the yellow flags are in the way, but I'm hoping everyone is actually able to get across the line to begin their lap. I think we'll jump over to Jan Haladej. We'll get a little bit of action as he hits that first sector very nicely indeed. He's got to be fully committed through this part of the circuit. Drift wide through turn number 5, then clip back over to the left for turn number 6, up the hill through the Dunlop curve you go, and then in towards Degner 1 and 2. Some of the most satisfying corners to get right, but he rides over the curve a little bit too much on the inside, has a little jump, hop and a skip for him there, and unfortunately I think I've discircled his car ever so slightly. He might have lost a slight amount of time, but nevertheless continuing on his run. I think everyone is going to be able to get across the line. It's very touch and go for Duncan Hoffman. He'll be able to start his lap with 3 seconds to go, but now the clock has struck 0, and that means we're going to have everyone on a lap. 18 drivers. Who's going to be taking pole position? We'll have to wait and see. We'll jump back over to Joseph Loke, who Nathan has invalidated his lap.
Yeah, that's not good, but he knows he's a 10th ahead of Max, so hopefully he can still get himself a very decent position in qualifying. Many people on improvements from there. That's why I'm going back to Jan Hade, who's coming down in towards the Casio triangle, a 10th up in that middle sector, good enough to put him into that top 10 ahead of Xander Van Dijk, and we'll see. And he goes a little bit wide though on the exit of the triangle. Where does he get on the board? It's P10, so not the best improvements. There's still many other times coming through.
Still plenty of drivers on their laps. We'll watch Mirko Soriano on his attempt. Legend Rosenberg has put himself into 12th. Camel Sakura goes up into 7th place because now Yannick Schmidt puts himself on the second row of the grid. Shimon Lekomsky into the line with a 1 minute 25.617. Jack West, a decent time from him to go ahead of Mirko Soriano, who is finding an ever so slight improvement in the second sector. He's up by just about a quarter of a tenth. It's very marginal. Can he find an improvement in sector 3 to get himself up the grid? Currently down in 9th position. Here comes Soriano to the line, and unfortunately he does improve, but not by enough, as now everyone else coming towards the line. Max Wiesel is unfortunately not going to be able to get himself back onto the front row of the grid. What about Duncan Hoffland coming up towards the line? He's the last man to set his lap, and unfortunately it's a 1 minute 25.675, so it is an improvement for Duncan Hoffland, but he's not going to be able to get his get an improvement. So Joseph Loke, despite that invalidation, he's starting on pole position here.
Yeah, that's great for Joseph. He didn't need to get that final lapping because luckily he still qualified about 50 thousandths ahead of Lekomsky, who took pole in Silverstone. This time it is still a place on the front row, and also Max didn't set another time, and he still starts in P3, so very nice for those two. Jack as well into P5, 4 positions ahead of Mirko. That's crucial for Jack. He's 5 points behind Mirko. If he can finish like this, I think he might just about be ahead. I'm not quite sure. But with Joseph on pole and Duncan in 4th, they've also got a good chance to try and get themselves closer to Mirko and Jack. So, yeah, this race could be key for the championship, especially for Joseph Loke and Jack West.
Yeah, absolutely. It could be a really fun one this evening to watch. We've got some of the guys we don't typically see at the front of the order starting in the upper echelon of the grid, and then some guys who we're more used to seeing in that top 5 position, be slightly further down the order. Mirko Soriano being down in 9th position certainly is a big surprise, but here is your qualifying classification. No one was able to top Joseph Loke's second run. He starts on pole position ahead of Shimon Lekomsky in 2nd, 3rd for Max Wiesel, 4th is Hoffland, 5th is Jack West, Yannick Schmidt, 6th, 7th is Xander Van Dijk, and 8th is Tamas Gallen. Rounding out the top 10 is Soriano and Stakara. Then we've got Timo Zelenkovic, Tycho Hardy, Jona Martins, Jan Haladej, Legend Rosenberg, Daniel Koya, Andrew Tarabukin, Matthew Order, Richard Jacobs, and Bent Jabo Connie. That will bring us to the end of qualifying here. We're going to have a lobby restart heading into the beginning of this race. And Nathan, that gives us a little bit more time to talk about qualifying here.
It does. Qualifying was great, and I think especially for Joseph, going into this race, he's very good with race pace as well as he is with qualifying pace. So there's no doubt that hopefully for him, with the right strategy, he can put himself, hopefully, he'd want to maybe start on the soft, get himself maybe second ahead of the person in 2nd or 3rd. Then that can help him throughout the race, obviously depending on what strategy those guys in 2nd, 3rd and 4th do. But yeah, I think qualify was quite close. Big shame for Mirko in 9th. He's got a lot of work to do. Obviously, you got the two got qualifying bans, Richard and Bench. They've got a lot of work from 19th to 20th. But yeah, as we said, there's many people in place we don't normally see, like Yannick Schmidt in 6th. That is very nice for him. We'll see what he can do, fight up at the top of the grid, somewhere that I don't think we've seen him much at all this season so far. And yeah, I think going into this, I think we could see some results we don't normally see, which is something nice. And with the race being quite, with it being, I think it's one of the longer races as well. With the amount of laps we've got 20. Is it 29 around here? I think.
I believe
28. So quite a lot of laps. Pit stops also come into play with the strategies on the tyres. Whether you go maybe I think we saw people to soft mediums, soft hards, and we saw hard softs and hard mediums last night in F1. So yeah, lots of strategies. Meaning at this point, it's probably going to be the best strategy that comes out on top, or at least into some, at least to get some good advantage over other drivers.
Yeah, I mean, last night in PSGL PC F1, Nicolas Longue, he took his first PSGL victory. I found that really hard to believe, because he has been racing in PSGL PC for a really long time, and it is good that the curse has finally been lifted for him, and I'm wondering if the curse is going to be lifted for anyone else this evening. One name I'm definitely looking at this evening, Nathan, is Max Wiesel. He really has just not had the season start that he would have wanted, and I'm thinking that, he should be in that championship fight. He's one of the older drivers on the grid. He's got that experience, and I think Sorry, I'm going to quickly bring up the standings again on my screen because truth be told, I forgot where he is. He's in 11th at the minute. I think he should be in the championship fight. I know he's got the pace. He's been qualifying really well, but then his strategy, sometimes undoes him and he gets involved in some incidents, gets some silly penalties. And I'm really hoping for his sake this evening, Nathan, he has a good one.
Yeah, he needs a good race, at least even if it's not to kick off his championship charge, but to at least kick off a top 10, top 5, which he should definitely be in the championship. And going into this, I thought that looking at the grid, Max would be a championship contender. So it is a big surprise, considering he's got IL experience in racing. He's one of, I think he's one of those drivers on the grid by quite a lot. He's 33. Many of the drivers are in, I think, their early 20s at max. So yeah, he's got a lot more experience than some others. And also, with age comes intelligence. So we've seen a lot of times he knows when and when not to go for a move. So hopefully, that could be something that helps him move himself up in the race. Starting P3, you're in a decent spot. Podium for Max with what we normally see at this pace should be pretty much guaranteed. But we know the strategy got the better of him many times. So that's something he's got to work on today, and hopefully it's something that he can get on top of and put himself into a position where he really, really deserves and where we haven't seen him at all this season.
Yeah, absolutely, and I'm really hoping the best for every driver on this grid, but I'm just hoping the most, Nathan, that we have a fair race, because I know that the driving standards so far this season, they've not been the best, but at a track like Japan, I think you do just take it with a little bit more caution. One slight mistake can completely ruin yours and potentially other drivers' races. Because I'm thinking, going for a silly move in turn number 1 where you're high speed through there, another driver can easily just turn into you ever so slightly. Both of you are sent into a spin. You come spearing back onto the circuit, and then you take out multiple other drivers. I think you just take that little bit extra caution around a track like Japan, or you just drive it like you do normally, and then everyone's in the gravel by the end of the race. So it can go one of two ways this evening, and Nathan, I'm really hoping that is the former.
Yes, I think, with it being quite a tight first sector round, if one person goes round, there'll be some that might go around due to ghosting not working. And even if the ghosting does work, you can get caught off a little, you can get caught off guard a little bit, and that can also send you around into a spin or a bit more contact with other drivers. So hopefully, if we can make it through the first couple of sectors, we should be hopefully on course for a decent, clean race. But we've got to hope the commentator's curse doesn't come into play, because it has done many times, and if it does tonight, that'll be a big shame. But yeah, hopes are there. It wasn't too bad in F1 last night, bar a couple of incidents. So yeah, hopefully it all goes well. In Austria, at least, I believe, from what I remember, it wasn't too bad. The driving standards were quite decent there. So yeah, hopefully they can follow on from that. And we've noticed many times that F2 generally, even though if it doesn't have the best driving standards, normally has better driving standards than it does in F1. So yeah, hopefully these drivers can put on a clean show, but a fair show.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, I don't think it helps though that Suzuka turn number 1 is quite synonymous for one of the most controversial championship deciders of all time. I think it's 1990. Ayrton Senna and Alain Prost, and someone probably is going to crash there and then make the excuse that Senna and Prost did it all that time ago and they're two of the best drivers of all time, but it doesn't help that it is very easy to crash around this circuit, and I am really keeping my fingers crossed throughout the entirety of this race that they just keep it clean. Some hard racing is fine, but when you're shoving off everyone every single time you can overtake, it's just fun for no one. And the viewers are included. And speaking of the viewers, we've not actually really spoken to anyone this evening. We've got 83 viewers currently in the live chat. Let us know who you are supporting this evening in this race. We have a fantastic grid of future up and coming F1 esports stars, and there's plenty of names to enjoy. Nathan, this evening, who are you looking out for?
Max Wiesel. I think he deserves it. And I'm going to say Max will take the win as well. I'm going to go all in.
Oh, wow.
What about you, Dan?
Oh, are we doing win predictions already?
Yes, already.
I'm going to have to remind myself of the grid because, truth be told, I've already forgotten it. I'm going to go with a bit of a reach here. 7th place starter, Xander Van Dyken, taking victory this evening. He's also had a bit of a disappointing start to the season, so the theme is quite similar here between you and I. I would just really, personally, I just really like to see him on top. He's a fantastic guy, and he's a great racer. Never really gets involved in many incidences, where he's at fault. And I hope he has a good race. And you have to be a little bit ambitious sometimes when you're making that decision to put their name in the hat. So I'm gonna go with Xander Van Dyken to take victory today.
Well, it's a fair shot, and well, I think we know from what we've seen before he's got the pace to do so. And I think Xander's the only one who's making us not start because he hasn't picked his car, which I hope he does so soon so we can get underway. Hopefully we don't have the start like we did in Silverstone where we waited an extra 20 minutes, but I don't think we will. So hopefully we get everyone underway very nicely, and then we've just got to wait for Tamas to set the grid up, which hopefully doesn't take too long. And then you have 27 laps of hopefully great racing, and also the strategy as well. That is something I'm looking forward to. We saw quite a mix of strategy in F1. I peeked into the F3 stream earlier on. There was also quite a mix of strategy with softs and hards. So yeah, then that is I think it's going to be a great race. And if you can get the strategy right, even if you're in 7th like Xander Van Dyken, maybe you can put yourself up into the top.
Possibly, maybe, some of these guys in that 7th, 8th and 9th range. I know Mirko Soriano is in and around that area. Maybe they could opt to go for a step softer compound tyres to start this race off, then really get the advantage as early as possible, pit ever so slightly earlier than your rivals, then get an undercut and then just pretty much park the bus in front of them. It's very hard to overtake on this circuit, and if you're smart with your ERS conservation, that one proper overtaking opportunity in towards turn number 1, you can pretty much mitigate all of that heading in towards. Sorry, I just completely blanked there. You can mitigate that DRS advantage by using the battery smart and really pushing us. Xander's still not in his car. I'm gonna check the Discord chat, see if anyone's complaining at him, because I don't know if Tamas can actually sort himself out onto the grid. I don't know. I don't know. Apparently it's done, but I'm just hoping we get underway very soon because I'm itching to get going.
Yeah, it says just checking the grid again if everything's right and the lobby settings give me 2 minutes. So hopefully that means we get underway quickly. Yeah, Yona's asking if you did the grid, and apparently we've got a forced cockpit on, so quick, Tamas needs to change that because that won't be an ideal start.
No, then we'd have to go again.
Yeah, and he's just saying for now, don't ready up, so hopefully that can be changed very quickly. And Brett says in the chat, Yannick for champion. Probably not. It's a little bit too late in the season. You never say never, but it's a little bit too late, isn't it? Let's be honest.
I'm going to check. Where is he in the standings at the minute?
So I think he missed the first 3.
Oh, Yannick Schmidt's in 24th at the minute. He's he missed the first 3 races of this season. He is a reserve. No, he's not a reserve. I think Jack West filled in for him, didn't he, in the first few rounds of this season. So that's definitely ambitious, Brett, but fair enough. I mean, Yannick he's definitely a talented driver, and he's got the pace this evening. He's starting in a very decent position, P6 for Yannick Schmidt, driver I'm not very familiar with in commentary. I've only commentated on him a handful of times, so I don't really know the potential that he has, but the upside at the minute is looking really good for him.
Yeah, well, he was one I was looking to hopefully be fighting for the championship, or at least fighting for the top 5 in WOR. He was runner-up against Daniel Kelton in season 14. He's a very quick driver, so yeah, I'm quite surprised to see him not have the best pace. Obviously, he didn't start the first trip, but then he had a DNF in Qatar, and then he finished only 11th in Austria. So still, no points on the board. One of only 5 drivers this season, along with Lukomsky hasn't got any points.
Yeah,
now that is a surprise.
Yeah, and Shimon Lukomsky.
I've just noticed
he's starting in that top 5 this evening. So I definitely think he could have a good chance getting his first points this season. Hopefully, for everyone's sake, it's going to be a good race. We are about to get ready to get underway for this 27-lap Japanese Grand Prix. Nathan, it's one of my favourite circuits to drive, and it can also produce some absolute worldies in racing. So heading into this one, I can't wait to get it underway.
Normally, it's one of my favourite tracks as well, I think, in terms of driving and the entertainment value. And the fact of the nature of the track, it's a very nice track aesthetically as well. And also, it's, as you said earlier, the only track with a with a figure 8 layout. Bit of an odd fact, but it's cool, I guess.
Yeah, and we were thinking of facts earlier in the stream, and or not earlier in the stream, but before the race actually started. Suzuka is well known for designing stencil paper, or just making it or something. I don't know, but it's a fun little fact that we thought about at the beginning of the stream. Before the stream started. I'm going to bring us over to the game scene. We're going to stop waffling about the useless facts that I just wanted to bring up because they're fun. I'll put us into the game scene now. And Nathan, we don't get the timer anymore, but you're waiting for people to load in. Hopefully, we get underway very shortly.
Well, hopefully we do. I can see a few cars at the bottom right of the screen, but yeah, there's no countdown, so you just got to kind of wait and catch it at the right time. Sometimes it's less than 30 seconds, sometimes it's over a minute, so hopefully they don't keep catch us while we're waffling on. But yeah, it's pole for... Who's it? Oh no. Who's pole?
Pole this evening, Joseph Loke.
Yeah, Joseph, there we go. I forgot completely, blanked my mind. Second is Lekomsky and then third is Max, isn't it?
I believe so. To be honest, I forgot as well. We're getting ready for this one to get underway. I see in the live chat, Will Lewis has said Dan Field for champion. Thank you very much. I think I might ever so slightly be out of championship contention at this point in the season, but maybe I'll hop in next race and then get some points on the board. We are just waiting for the last few drivers to ready up, lock in their strategies, and then we should head into this one. Really excited to get this Japanese Grand Prix underway. As we were talking about earlier on, this track is, there's plenty of different strategies you could opt for. There's not many places to overtake, and this is definitely one of the most challenging tracks on the Formula 1 calendar. How will these guys cope with the ever-changing elevation and undulation of this circuit? We'll have to wait and see as we are waiting to get the lights underway. Here we are then, getting ready for the beginning of the Japanese Grand Prix. 5 red lights here in Japan. And we are underway, and it looks to be a good start for Joseph Loke, heading in towards turn number 1 on the set of the soft compound tyres. Max Wiesel looks towards the outside line of Szymon Lekomsky, heading in towards turn number 1. Will the Mercedes driver go all the way around the outside onto the curbing off the exit of turn number 2? He's going to have the inside line now for the S's section. He's going to have to back off as Szymon Lekomsky gets the better run through there, chopping and changing throughout the rest of the grid, but it's been a very clean start all the way through. Yannick Schmidt has had a good getaway. He's on the back now of Duncan Hoffland, who's starting on the hard compound tyres, struggling with the warm-up, almost spinning through the Dunlop curb, and now Yannick Schmidt all over the rear diffuser of the Aston Martin driver. It looks to be a good day to be a soft run at the moment, Nathan.
Definitely, Yannick's going to have to go for a move surely into this hairpin up the inside. Does he go for it? He has to go for it, but then Duncan defends, so he can't get it now, and he gets tapped round by Jack West, I believe, and also Mirko Soriano up the inside of Tamas Gal, who's now got the inside line. We're going 3 wide in towards turn 11. Surely one of these will go around as we come through, and still they'll make it all through cleanly. Tamas Gal into P5, Mirko into P6, and Jack West now into P7 behind his championship protagonist. But remember, it is hard tyres for Jack and soft for Mirko Soriano further back. And where did he drop down to? Yannick Schmidt dropped down to P9. So luckily, still on the back of Camille, but not what he would have wanted on that restart, as Camille's looking for a move on Jack West.
Yeah, it's not been a good start for Yannick Schmidt, unfortunately. He was all over the back of Duncan Hoffman. And unfortunately, the move from Jack West went ever so slightly awry. Now West is going to lose that place to Kamil Stacker, and Yannick Schmidt just continues to drop down the order. He's now lost 2 places to Timo Zelenkovic and Xander Van Dyken. Xander Van Dyken's also not had a good getaway in this Grand Prix, but at the front of the order, the top 3 remain unchanged in this race. Joseph Loke, Szymon Lekomsky and Max Wiesel, all of them opting to start on a set of the soft compact size. Something happened to Max Wiesel. He's tumbling down the order. I can't find his car. Where is he? As he spun round, and Max Wiesel, he's left the session. What's happened? He must have just made a mistake. Where is he on the circuit? He's off the exit of turn number 4, I think that is. Yeah.
3.
Oh, Max, no.
Well, that prediction went well, didn't it? Jack pushed Yannick off at the exit of the final corner, so that's why he lost another 4 positions. So not the cleanest start, but hopefully he can get clear as we go through. Wish on ahead of Matthew Alder, who is also trying to get back ahead, can't do so. Sabakonyi looking to get through on the back of Andrei Tarabukin down in towards turn 13, 14 spoon curve. Andrei weaving about. Bence can't find a way through, so has to concede that position and back up. Yannick Schmidt on the back of Xander Van Dyke on the medium tyres, the only one to start on the mediums. as we head down in towards 130. The gap between Duncan and Simon is just over a second, so now Joseph and Simon need to try and push ahead and keep that gap over a second for quite a considerable time, and hopefully, for their sake, Tamas and Mirko try and make a fight as that was Yannick Schmidt go for a move on Zan van Dokken. That was a little bit too early, wasn't it, Yannick? As loses a position to Jona Martins. Yannick goes off track where he went off track last time, then drops down to P15, gets overtaken by Andrei Trabukin and also Bent Sabakonyi. Yannick, that was not the best start at all, was it?
It's just impatience there. He's on the soft compound tyres. He knows he's the quicker driver, but he's just going for these rash moves up the inside of the Casio triangle where the gap really wasn't there. And yeah, that was just a silly mistake on his part. I think there was some damage coming off one of the cars. I'm hoping. Who was he on the back of? Someone, I think, has picked up some sort of wing damage. I'm not too sure. As now Yannick Schmidt is all over the back of Bent Jabokonyi. Apparently there's Max Viesel's had some internet issues, so I'm wondering as there goes Yannick Schmidt up the inside of Degno 1 on Bent Jabokonyi. I'm just seeing in the live chat, I think Max Viesel's had some sort of internet issue, and it's maybe sent him to a spin. I don't know what's happened. Maybe he was lagging all over the place, and then something's happened. He's gone into a tumble, and unfortunately Max Wiesel, his day looks to be over.
Yeah, I suppose also the fact could be if he was having some issues, it might be the fact a bit of desync could have caused someone to just tap into the side of him and spin him round. Because obviously, when you've got bad internet, it's horrible to have to race someone around here with bad internet. So yeah, a big shame for Max, and he's pretty much done in this race. So yeah, it's not good at all, and that's going to hurt his confidence even more. Back on board Yannick Schmidt, trying to get himself ahead of Andrei Trabukin, can't do so just yet. You can see on these soft tyres having to brake so much more earlier than you should have to on these tyres. That's Mirko Soriano ahead of Tamas Gal down towards that first corner. Thatcher is about a second back, so he's going to try and gain into the back of these two. And the gap between Mirko and Duncan is just under a second at the moment, and then the gap between Duncan and Shimon is still just over a second. So surely for Jonathan and Simon, that gap needs to increase to make these soft tyres be worth it at this point. So yeah, that's something they've got to work on. Mirko's got to get himself back into 1 second, because he's actually, considering he's on softs, not that quick compared to what he should be when he's on the back of Duncan Hoffland, who's on the slower tyres by quite a margin, with those being the hardest compound.
Yeah, Duncan's doing really well making these hard compound tyres work, and he's definitely going to be able to reap those rewards later on in the Grand Prix. Although I do think Joseph Loke and Szymon Komski have been helped out massively by the issues that Max Wiesel unfortunately suffered, because now that's created a rift between themselves and Duncan Hoffland in behind, where there should be a Mercedes car giving DRS to Duncan Hoffland. There is now 1.5 seconds of space between the pair of them. That gap is increasing ever so slightly. I think the worst thing that these two can do at the front of the order is begin to fight. I'm going to have a look at the ERS situation for the pair of them. Both of them are pushing quite a decent amount, but Duncan Hoffland almost completely flat on the battery. It is pretty difficult to recharge the ERS around here. There's not many heavy braking zones whatsoever. I'm just thinking the hairpin in the second sector is really the only place where you can recharge the battery. So at the moment, Lekomsky and Loke, they're doing a good job here, as now Lekomsky is going to look towards the inside line of turn number 1. We've got yellow flags off the exit of the final corner. That's Jan Halinich, I think, has had an unfortunate spin. But yeah, on lap number 5 now, Nathan, Szymon Lekomsky into the lead of the race.
Yeah, and I've just been given some confirmation DMs that, yeah, Max's internet dropped. Unfortunately, you could see his Discord completely died, so obviously due to his internet. So big shame for Max, and yeah, it's not what he would have wanted, but enough of that, because he's out of it now, he's done for. So back to the actual racing. At the top, still, Joseph and Szymon, they're working together, not fighting too hard, and when you're at the top, ahead of the hard runners, you want to make sure you don't fight, otherwise that's going to lose you more time, and it's going to put these drivers and the hard runners eventually into a better position as the race folds over. Looking further down, Jack West is still on the back of Camel Sasha, so the softs for Camel not working very well. But you can see Jack gaining quite a lot. The gap's less than a tenth as they come down in towards Spoon Curves at turns 13 and 14, and the gap, yeah, less than a tenth. So now Jack wants to get himself probably through on that AlphaTauri and put himself back into the top 6. He's gaining a lot. He's using that battery. He's got the inside line there on Camel and flies past him pretty much before the turn in at the 130R corner. So there we are, Jack West now working his way back through the field, and also right on the back of Tamas Gal, who hasn't got DRS, going on to the next lap.
Can Jack West then make another move in towards turn one. We'll see what he can do off the exit of the final corner. Has he got the run on Tamashkan? You can see that the Red Bull driver is vulnerable, and he's not even going to need to use any of his backs to get the inside. Camel Stashera is going to try and follow through, and he's going to make that move stick. Very opportunistic from Camel Stashera, and that has been nice from him there. Tamashkan, unfortunately, at the expense of that double overtake, the overtake from both drivers. Now he's down from 5th in towards 7th position. And I believe in the next few laps he's going to be at the mercy of the likes of Timo Zelenkovic, Zana Van Dijk and Jona Martins, who's now in that top 10. Very nice to see that he's in a points-paying position. Those tyres will begin to phase into this race really nicely, and they'll be able to apply the pressure onto the back of the Hungarian in the next few laps. Well, I have to say, I think the fastest driver on circuit has got to be Zander Van Dijken on lap number 6. Those medium tyres are still going to be in prime working condition, and those hards, they're not quite up to speed at the minute, as now Andrei Tarabukin is up the inside of Legend Rosenberg in towards the hairpin corner. I believe Legend is going to be able to hold on to that position, as they're going to continue to fight it out all the way down in 14th and 15th position.
Yeah, there's quite a lot of battling supposedly going down at the bottom of the field. Yannick Schmidt is still trying to get through on Andrei and Leisure, and you could see his impatience has got the better of him because maybe just can't get through on any of them. So that's one thing that Yannick struggled with before. He's a bit too impatient, and he gets a little bit too aggressive, and it's obviously not worked off at all because he started in 6th. He moved up to 4th on the first lap, and he's now sitting down about 10 positions back in P15 as Andrei Tarabukin. They went for a move on Legend. Legend moved over to defend very well. Better exit for Andrei in the final corner. Maybe we could see him get through as Legend has a giant slide. They nearly cat each other coming out the final corner down towards that first corner. There's no DRS, I don't think, for Legend, but there is for Andrei Tarabukin and Yannick Schmidt. As we head down to that first corner, does Andrei get ahead? No, he's 6 behind. And it looked like he purposely stayed behind because he didn't really push for that move at all. And he puts himself back into contention for potentially all the way to the top because everyone down to P17 is all in that one DRS train. Yannick Schmidt is 10th and a bit back from Andrei Tarabukin, trying to get himself back into P14. And now, the good thing is you can see Duncan Hoffman's tyres are starting to work because he's only sitting 5 tenths back from Joseph Loke. And now, Jack West, he's slowly starting to sit comfortably back in, starting to get himself comfortably back in towards that DRS train of Mirko and the above.
Yeah, what's happened here is that Duncan Hoffman, now his tyres are phased into the race. He's been able to drag the likes of Soriano, West and Stashera up in towards this top 2 fight. And so now everyone is in one big DRS train throughout the entirety of this grid. And surely, if Fjord Lekomsky and Loke are going to start to think about a potential pit stop soon, as Duncan Hoffman gets a bit too trigger happy on the throttle off the exit of the Spoon curve. Almost spins off the exit through there. He's going to be able to catch his sliders. Now something's happened to Ben Shabakoni. He's off the circuit at Spoon. I'm wondering what has happened to him there. Has he got any wing damage? I don't believe so. Might have just been a little bit of contact with another driver that's unfortunately sent him into a spin. But looking once again back to the front of the order, I don't believe we're going to be able to see any move at the minute. Let's have a look at the DRS situation. Joseph Loke and Shimon Okonski is pretty much on the same. And okay, what? Joseph Loke is completely backed off, heading in towards turn number 1. He did not want to go for that move at all. And now, Nathan, that is why I'm thinking. I'm actually thinking that Duncan Hoffman, Mirko Soriano, Jack West, they've all been able to catch up because Joseph Loke doesn't want to go for the move.
No, and well, he's got to hope it doesn't hamper him. And if he does it again, we've seen in the past. I think it happened in Bahrain. You let off a bit too much, and someone comes flying up your inside, and you don't expect to see it coming. So Joseph's got to be careful of that. As Duncan, you can see, he's always right on his tail. But with Andrei Tarabukin, he went off track after a bit of a collision with Yannick Schmidt, then come back onto track, and it then just sent Ben Sabakoni around. He was coming through the normal line. Andrei come back on and just kind of took out the Red Bull, unfortunately, from our camera angles, as Yannick's still trying to get himself back ahead of the Alpine. Richard Jacobs having a decent start. I think he was 19th, now up to 14th, trying to catch back onto his teammate. Yannick Schmidt yet again looking for a move on Andrei Tarabukin. This is where they collided before at Spoon, and this time Yannick's not close enough. He sits back in towards turn 13, then into towards turns 14. Yet again not close enough for now on the back of that Alpine. And yeah, still, the unfortunate part is with the nature of the track, many people are just stuck in this train and no one's really gaining on anyone. You can see pretty much Teamer down to Legend have just been literally the same gaps the whole way through. There's no, gains or losses for any of them, unfortunately. So the racing so far isn't too interesting, but when the pit stops come, that's when it does get interesting, because we've got the different ages of tyres, and also we've got the different compounds again. So yeah, it's going to be pretty interesting for them sitting 8th and down. You'll start to think some of them might go for a bit of an undercut move just so they can get themselves out of that dirty air. That's always also Yannick Schmidt ahead of Andrei Tarabukin down in towards that first corner to put himself into P15.
It feels like ages Yannick Schmidt has been stuck behind Andrei Tarabuc, and it's going to definitely feel good for the Williams driver to get himself ahead of his rival, potentially try and close up to the back of the two McLarens of Legend Rosenberg and Rishan Jacobs, but it's definitely going to be a massive task for Yannick Schmidt to get himself back into the top 10, as now we've got yellow flags and the VSC has been deployed. Something's happened with Andrei Tarabuc. Might have been some contact with Matthew Alder there, because I saw Matthew made a move in towards the Dunlop curve, and now Andrei Tarabuc is without a front wing, so I'm guessing he maybe, I don't know if he hit the inside wall, if he went all the way into the gravel at the end of the circuit, but now we've got a bit of a break in the action. VSC has been deployed, and now Andrei Tarabuc, just being overtaken by Yannick Schmidt, has now got no front wing at all, and I am dumbfounded as actually what's happened there.
Well, it must have been with Matthew, mustn't it? Otherwise, he just lost it on the corner exit of the Degner curves and just gone into the wall. Jan's got himself ahead. Obviously, Max's AI is a little bit further back, but with the VSC out, it kind of neutralises the race. You can, maybe if you need to, start to slowly build your battery back up by a few percentages, as we know that even 2 or 3% of battery can help you, as we have now. The soft runners pitting, we know with the VSC, you lose less time in the pit lane. Duncan also pitting, along with pretty much everyone's pitting, apart from Zan van Dyken, who stays out, along with Jona, Tycho, and many others. But yeah, that's quite surprising. So many people going in very early.
Can the mediums,
it's very early.
Can the mediums go to the end of this race? I mean, Duncan Hoffman, Jack West, Timo Zelenkovic, they've all got to go on that set. As now Tarabuc is going to retire in the pit lane. It's a no-brainer. You've got to go on the hard compound of tyres if you started on the soft, but the mediums going to the end of this race is definitely a massive question mark. It's going to be 18 laps at this point, and you know, there's 10 laps in that they all pitted from the soft, so I'm not too sure if they're actually going to make it to the end. I saw Nicolas Longue earlier on in the stream said something about his tyres being good throughout the entirety of the race, so maybe the mediums are the way to go here and they can actually make it to the end. I'm not too sure when he pitted in that race, but it's definitely interesting to see how the VSC has affected the pit stop strategy. Now we'll see how the likes of Szymon Lekomski, Joseph Loke, how they're going to cope with now the quicker medium runners in behind them.
Yeah, I think the mediums, I think they should make it to the end of the race, but it's a fact of how good the tyres are at the end. If they start to drop completely by the end, you're going to be beaten up by a lot of people, so maybe it's not the way to go. But obviously we know Duncan, Jack, Timo and Jan are the very quick drivers, so obviously they must think it'll work. Otherwise they're hoping for a safety car, which I don't think is the most likely option. As Joseph Loke looking to get himself ahead of the Aston Martin of Jan Halliday. Obviously on the older hards, this could pose an issue for many drivers trying to fight back through, because these drivers are still fighting position. They will still defend, as Jan has to give away that position to Loke, who now moves himself into the top 10, and now Lekomski has got DRS to the back of Ben Shabakonyi, and Jonah Martin's taking the lead in towards that first corner.
Yeah, I think those hard tyres are completely done for Xander Van Dyken. Sorry, the medium tyres are done for Xander Van Dyken. The hards are the quicker tyre in this race, as now Szymon Lekomski gets ahead of Ben Shabakonyi in towards turn number 1. You may have noticed on the timing tower there's a massive break in between Joseph Loke, Szymon Lekomski and Duncan Hoffman. I think Hoffman might have been held up in the pit lane because now he's 2 seconds off the back of Jan Halliday at the moment. He's losing a lot of time to Joseph Loke and Szymon Lekomski, so I'm wondering what's happened with him there. That's really going to be hampering him into the rest of this race, as now Joseph Loke gets ahead of the bench Shabakonyi. So that is 2 sort of backmarker slower cars in between the Williams and the Aston Martin. That's definitely going to be benefiting them in the long run, because Duncan Hoffman, he's going to have to use up those tyres to try and get through on these guys as best he can. I know Jan Halliday is likely going to get out of the way of his teammate, but I think Ben Shabakonyi could provide some issues for Duncan Hoffman there.
He could. Well, he provided a bit of an issue to Joseph, because the gap was about 5 tenths to him and Szymon. It was over a second once he got ahead of the Red Bull, as Cobbs gets himself ahead of Matthew Alder, and now Joseph will be next to get himself ahead of Matthew, and this is for P8 at the moment. Matthew hasn't pitted along with many of the drivers ahead, and actually Matthew could try and pose a battle back to Szymon. No, he stays back for now, so that was clever of Matthew to do. Joseph about 2 tenths back, is caught to the back of these guys, and look at that, having to lift up completely because Matthew's tyres have got no grip at all compared to these newer hards. And then he put him on, yeah, he had to lift up completely coming at that final corner. Now, Joseph, if he wanted, could go for the lead. Sits back on the back of Szymon, doesn't want to fight for that lead just yet, would rather have the DRS. We know that the DRS around here is very powerful, as it is generally on this game. So, yeah, for now, Joseph playing the strategy he's played many times in this season. Stick behind to the guy with no DRS.
Absolutely, as Duncan Hoffman gets himself ahead of Jan Haladej. Jan didn't look like he put up much of a fight against his teammate this evening, and he just, he slotted himself back in behind, and that was a very carefree overtake from Duncan Hoffman. There was no need to really think about it whatsoever. He might need to think a little bit more about attacking Benjamin Coney. Would he got the inside in towards the hairpin? Indeed he will. Very late braking for Duncan Hoffman there, but Benjamin Coney, he really did have no fight against that whatsoever. It's 2-lap-old mediums against 11-lap-old hards. The difference in grip is going to be monumental, and I think Matthew Alder is going to get a taste of that firsthand, because in towards Spoon, look at how much later Duncan Hoffman can go on the brakes and how much more he can get on the power earlier off the exit of the corner. He's going to be able to breeze on by on Matthew Alder, and we will see the gap between Duncan Hoffman and Joseph Loke. It's about 1.7 seconds. It's not that bad. He can definitely catch that probably in the next lap or two, but certainly it's been a setback for Duncan Hoffman, have to get through all this traffic.
It has, but the issue he's got to face is, obviously, there's DRS available for Joseph. There's no DRS for Duncan, so he's going to, he could gain a few tenths in the middle sector, but then when it comes to the straight to get the DRS, he loses 3 or 4 tenths due to Joseph having that advantage, so that's not a good situation at all for Duncan. Matthew's sitting right behind Bench as well, and now it's time for Mirko and Jack to put themselves in towards, on the back of this train of Shimon, Joseph and Duncan. You can see now that Mercedes and Matthew holding everyone up, and it's going to make bigger gaps, especially for Mirko and Jack, because they've got to get through on just not one, but 2 of these drivers who aren't as quick at this point because of the older hard tyres. Mirko looking for a move into Degner's, can't get one there. Jack West following right behind in towards Degner 2. Nothing you can do there. Now it's a hairpin. That's where now Mirko's got to try and send at least one overtake on the Red Bull. Can he get it into the hairpin? He's going to have to brake later. He does go for it, but Benz will still try and fight it. Jack West as well, trying to follow the Ferrari through. Can't make it work, so now Jack West still behind the Red Bull. Mirko's ahead of it, and now it's Mirko's turn to hopefully down this back straight in towards 130R. Mirko needs to get ahead of Matthew Alder. Jack West ahead of Bench before the braking zone at the Spoon curves. Going through out of turn 14 at the exit of the Spoon curve 2. It's now time for Jack and Mirko to get ahead of the Mercedes. Down in towards 130R. Mirko's got a lot of work to do, and so far he's not making that big of a charge, you'd think.
I don't know if he's going to be able to go for it up in towards Casio Triangle. We'll see what he can do up the inside then of Matthew Alder. Xander Van Dyken coming in towards the pit lane. Matthew Alder, I think he goes deeper on the brakes, and now he's practically pushing the Mercedes car through the corner. This is going to allow for Jack West to potentially get a run in towards turn number 1. Here they go, potentially 4, 5, 3 wide in towards the first corner. Marcus Herrera up the inside of Matthew Alder. Very heavy defending towards Jack West, and I think, who was it? It was Matthew Benjamin Coney in behind, really just trying to scramble his way through. Matthew Alder was sort of a sitting duck in towards turn number 1. The 2 hard and medium runners who pitted under the VSC, Mirko Soriano and Jack West, have been able to get themselves through, but they've lost so much time sitting behind Matthew and Bench, because now it is now 3.1 seconds to Duncan Hoffland, who's fighting for the lead of this race. It is definitely going to be a tough ask for Mirko Soriano and Jack West to get themselves in towards this fight. However, Mirko should phase into this race later on. Jack West should be all over the back of him, as now the Benjamin Coney and Matthew Alder, they swap positions in the hairpin of the corner. Still yet to pit in this Grand Prix, and I'm wondering when are they going to come in, because they are really just providing to be a big issue for these guys who pitted under the VSC.
Nicholas says in the chat, Duncan's got to do even more laps than I had to yesterday on those mediums. Good luck. So, does that pose an issue for the likes of Duncan and Jack? Because if they, obviously, Nicholas did a great job on those mediums, took them quite long, and you could see there was considerably at some point slower than the hards. So, yeah, this could be a big ask, and this could be either it works beautifully or it does not work at all for those on the mediums, as that was Matthew Alder entering the pits. Bench Abercrombie getting himself back into 11th, followed by Jan Halliday. Camille and Tamash go. Obviously, Camille and Tamash are next to get ahead because they've got the newer medium, newer hards, whereas the others haven't. Tamash can't get himself ahead. Camille does. Puts himself into P12, but Tamash up the inside of Jan. Jan pretty much lets him through. Then at turn 1, as we head through it, Camille trying to get back ahead of Bench Abercrombie. The gap between them and Mirko is 2.3 seconds. That isn't ideal as a miss. Jack West getting ahead of Mirko, but the gap to Duncan is still 3.7 seconds. So it's a considerable gap to gain with only 12 laps to go.
Yeah, we're over the halfway point of this Grand Prix. Still, we are yet to see the top 5 come into the pit lane. It is only a matter of time before Szymon Lekomski and Joseph Loke catch up to the back of this train. It's 1.2 seconds the gap between Rishan Jacobs and Szymon Lekomski. As Duncan Hoffland, this is probably going to be his best time to really catch up to these guys before they get to the traffic, and then when they get caught up behind, he'll try and make his move. We'll have a look at the telemetry and see the ERS situation. 12% for Duncan Hoffland, it is 33% for Szymon Lekomski. Joseph Loke has got 40, so Duncan Hoffland is at a slight disadvantage in terms of the ERS management, and that can allow for Joseph Loke and Szymon Lekomski to burn a little bit of the battery heading down in towards the first few corners. And Duncan Hoffman really does have no answer at all. There's now 2 hard runners coming to the pit lane, Daniel Koyer and Legend Rosenberg. That's going to allow for 2 less cars to be in the way of Joseph Loke and Szymon Lekomski. Joseph Loke is able to get up the inside of Szymon heading in towards turn number 1. Szymon did not fight that move whatsoever, but Joseph is back into the net race lead of this Grand Prix. Jonah Martins, Tycho Hardy and Rishan Jacobs, they've all got to pit in this Grand Prix, and so once they do, Joseph Loke will be unleashed at the front of the order. Szymon Lekomski in second, third will be Duncan Hoffland. 6 laps on those mediums. He's got to get a move on, Nathan.
Yes, and well, if Rishan can hold these guys up perfectly, this is good for Jack West and Merco, because they need to get back through in the field. They're 4 seconds back. They've got a gigantic gap to gain, especially for Merco. Obviously on the hard, he's got probably the better chance of getting those tyres to the end. So for him to be this far back of the race when he's not good at all, and also remember, Joseph, he's about, I think 19 points back from Merco. So this is still good for Joseph to get that gap closer and closer to the back of Merco Soriano, and that gap is going to come down by at least 5 or 6 points if that continues to go this way. The results go this way this race. Joseph trying to get himself ahead of Rishan, stays behind for now, so maybe he wants to get that DRS possibly. Then towards that first corner, but the gap's just under a tenth of a second. Szymon sitting right behind, and then also Duncan Hoffland just under that tenth of a second, as that was also Lekomski. Looking like he went for a move on Joseph, he ran the outside but couldn't do, so that could be also the fact Joseph was lifting off again off the back of Rishan. Right, DRS for Joseph Loke, no DRS for Rishan. And then also with Szymon Lekomski, as that was Jonah Martins and Tycho Hardy in the pit. So now there's only 1 car left out on track on those older tyres, and it is Rishan Jacobs, as we go in towards that first corner, and 3 of them all within 0.2 of a second of each other.
Yeah, Duncan Hoffland has caught this at the worst time possible, because now in towards the S's section, where the difference in grip is going to be the most noticeable. He is going to be stuck behind Rishan Jacobs. You can see how much more he's able to go, how much more aggression he's able to take in towards the corners than Rishan Jacobs, and so being stuck behind this McLaren, it's really not going to be doing him any favours in this race. However, he's doing well to keep up with the 2 leaders in this Grand Prix. Will he try and send a move up the inside of the hairpin? It's going to be a very late braking manoeuvre if he goes for it, and he's going to stick in behind for the time being. Rishan, fair play to him, he's doing a really good job of actually keeping up with Loke and Lekomski. So see what Duncan Hoffman can do. Jack West and Marcus Serrano, they've not really been able to gain whatsoever, and in fact they've actually lost about a second ever since they got through on Matthew Mulder and bench Jabo Conyi. So yeah, I think they might be out of this Grand Prix. I think it's going to be a 3-horse race to the end. It's 2 hard runners against 1 medium runner. Who has got the strategy absolutely perfect? We'll have to wait and see, as now in towards the final few corners. The Casio triangle they will hit this time. Will Lekomski potentially go for a move on Joseph Loke? Will Rishan Jacobs peel off into the pit lane and unleash Duncan Hoffland? We'll have to wait and see, because here they come down the main straight in towards turn number 1. We're going to watch Szymon Lekomski. Will he close up to the rear of Joseph Loke and go up the inside? It doesn't look like he's going to be close enough this time either, but on lap number 18 we have 10 to go in this Grand Prix, and the front 3 they lead.
Yep, and now Duncan's just 0.3 behind, so Rishan holding those top 2 up has worked heavily for Duncan, and well, still for Jack and Merco, that gap's still increasing, considering these top 3 got held up. The gap for 4th and 5th hasn't come down at all, so that is really, really, a shame for those guys, because yeah, all this traffic, it's proven today that it does not help, and obviously with the fact they're not lapped cars, there's no blue flag, so they're obliged, if they want, to hold drivers up and to battle. And you can see, for some it's worked out, and for many it hasn't. As Camille, you can see he's still, he's in a good contention for points. So he's now 4.4 seconds back off Merco, along with Tomasz and Zelenkiewicz. Also, Zelenkiewicz has had a great start on those mediums. Yet again with the likes of Duncan and Jack, and then you've got to think as well, we get closer, we've got 9 laps remaining. do these mediums have enough pace to get to the end before you have the likes of Mirko, Kamil and Sander van Dijken starting to gain back and get themselves through? Because, you know, Nicholas, he took his mediums quite far. I think he did about 14 laps, and they were nearly dead by the end. So never mind when you've got to take them a little bit further.
Yeah, Duncan Olflin, you're going to have to do, what, 18 laps on this set of the mediums? Same for Jack West and Timo Zelenkovic and Yannick Schmidt, who all started on the hard. Well, actually, Yannick started on the softs. I don't know why he didn't go for a set of the hard compound tyres. You know, that just seems to be. It makes more sense. You don't want to risk it going that long into the Grand Prix on a set of the soft on the medium. Sorry, so I'm not too sure what he was thinking in that respect. But you know, Duncan and Jack, they didn't have a choice on the tyre that they could go for. Really, the softs couldn't go to the end. The mediums, it is plausible, but I'm not too sure if it is probable that they make it to the end and still have that level of pace that they are running with at the minute. Because I'd say with 9-lap-old wear on both these hards and the mediums, Nathan, I'd say it's around about equal in terms of pace. But in the next few laps, that gap is just going to get continually wider and wider and wider, and those hards will be better than the mediums in the next few laps. So I'm just wondering, have they blundered with the strategy here?
I'm watching Jona Martins at the moment trying to get himself ahead of Yannick, and Yannick defending very, very well and quite aggressively. And Jona, along with Daniel and Tycho, they're all going to be ones to watch how far up the field they can get as that Jona around the outside at the hairpin. Yannick tries to defend, pushes Jona out a little bit wide, Jona onto the grass. And that's defence. That's very defensive there from Yannick. Puts Daniel ahead of Jona now as they head down in towards Spoon Curve. And can Daniel put himself ahead of Yannick Schmidt? I don't think he can in towards the corner. He sits back for now in towards turns 13 and 14 at Spoon. Jona Martin still sitting right behind, was looking to get himself into a length, now drops down to P13. Also under pressure from Tygo Hardy. As we head through, Daniel Kai gets himself ahead of Yannick Schmidt. Now Jona Martin's turn to get himself through up the inside of Yannick. Puts himself ahead. Yannick can't defend that, but he does try and defend it, and they both go off track. Nearly similar to what we saw with Danny and Alfie. As now Tygo Hardy goes for a move on Jona Martin's right into the chicane, and that is a bit of a push there from Tygo. Sent it a little bit too deep. Jona Martin's still coming to contact with them as they exit out of the final corner, down towards turn 1. Jona trying to get himself back ahead of the Alfa Romeo, and now, from what looks like he was getting himself into P11, he's dropping down quite a few positions behind now both of the Alfa Romeos.
I'm glad that didn't end in tears, because that was some pretty hard fought racing throughout the entirety of it, and I don't think it is over, because now Jona Martins on the back of Tycho Hardy has to save the car, getting into the back of the Alfa Romeo. That's going to allow for Legend Rosenberg to potentially get sniff in for a move, heading through the Dunlop curve. There they go. I think this battle is going to hit the brakes for the time being, but you know, that could have been really, really bad if one of those guys was sent off into the barrier, because we've been talking about driving standards so much, and it's felt like it's actually been a pretty decent race in terms of driving standards, and you know, that could have been absolutely detrimental to the integrity of this race. Luckily, they all kept it on circuit. Few touch and go moments there, but I think we're going to put that down to some hard racing, and that is what we do like to see here in PSGL. Fair play to Yannick Schmidt. He really did try and defend that position all he could, but I just don't think the tyres are up to scratch anymore. It's 4-lap-old and 3-lap-old medium tyres against 10 laps on his own set, so it's really not going to be good at all, as now Jan Halliday is losing a few places onto the grass. What is happening? Jan Halliday on the grass. Something's happened there with the Aston Martin.
Has he got a puncture maybe? Or was he just letting everyone through? Because he was going very slow through there, wasn't he? Does he pull into the pits? He does, so he must have had a puncture, otherwise his tyres are just really deep. He did take them 19 laps. So now, that's Daniel finds Zander for P9. I didn't catch that one.
Oh well, yeah. I mean, Zander van Dijken, he's on the hard tyres, and the mediums are still in great condition for Daniel Koyer, who's now into P9 and ahead of his fellow countrymen. There's a lot of Dutch drivers on this grid. Maybe it gives them a sense of camaraderie in at this Grand Prix. There's a Dutchman at the front of the order fighting for the lead. It's quite unfortunate, Nathan, that we're not seeing all this fighting for the top spots in the Grand Prix, but you know, nevertheless, we'll continue on, as now Timo Zelenkovic getting close to the back of Kamil Stasher. It's 11-lap-old hards against 11-lap-old mediums. Who's going to come out on top? You'd think that at this point the hards are better. Now Tycho Hardy on the back of Zander van Dijken. It's just battling everywhere.
It is, and I've just noticed P9 to P14 is all Dutch drivers. 5 of them all together, or 6 of them all together, fighting for what is points at the moment as we come through. And Rishan, he's 1.4 seconds back off of his teammate. and he's got 2 lap newer tyres than Regin. He's got 1 lap newer tyres than many of the others ahead. So for Richard, this could be a strategy that works out quite well. Tycho Hardy now trying to get himself ahead as Xander does so. Now it's Jonas Martin's trying to get himself ahead as Legend Rosberg's had a disconnect. He's left the session. So that is going to be e-meta contention because the AI is considerably slower than these drivers. Is actually a bit further up. That was Camel Stacher having an incident. He's gone off.
Always happened with Camel Stacher there. We knew that he was close to Timur Zelenkovic. I wonder if there was a move potentially sent up the inside. Yannick Schmidt's coming into the pit lane. I think for a set of soft compound tyre. Never mind. He's going to retire from this race. Unfortunate there that Yannick Schmidt. He had a lot of potential to do good things in this race. He started in such a high position. I think his impatience really got the better of him. And unfortunately that was the undoing of his race. He is out of this Grand Prix, making it 3 retirements so far this evening. At the moment though, we are watching Daniel Koya on the back of Timur Zelenkovic, 6 lap fresher, medium tyres strapped onto that Alfa Romeo. Will he try and send a move up and towards the hairpin? He's definitely going to look for it, and that is just, that's silly. Something's happened there. I think Timur Zelenkovic, he had a bit of an odd line there. Daniel Koya really just didn't see it. I don't know how they didn't, they escaped from that without any wing damage at all there. Maybe there was a bit of desync. I don't know what's happened, but Daniel Koya's gone plain into the back of him, and somehow they've been able to escape without a hitch. So fair play to them, but they've lost a lot of time to Tamas Gow. Now in towards 130 they go. I think Daniel Koya is going to have the run around the outside of this corner, and we'll see what he can do. Is he going to have to hang it the long way round? Timur Zelenkovic going to keep his foot in there, side by side through 130 they go, and Daniel Koya has been able to make that move stick around the outside. Timur Zelenkovic now going to be swallowed up by the pack because it is going to be Tycho Hardy trying to make the move stick next. However, DRS for the Alpine is going to allow for him to stay in contention here. But wow, what a move from Daniel Koya.
That was a great move in towards 130R. As Jonas Martin was looking for a move on Tycho Hardy, he went a little bit deep into that corner after trying to make a move around the outside. Zelenkovic, that defence, I would say it's a weird braking zone, so stuff like that, it can happen. But I think it was the fact that it was very unpredictable for Daniel to kind of catch on to what Tim was doing. But I think for now, we'll let that one settle off to bed. Looking further down, it is Jonas Martin trying to get himself back ahead of Tycho, who's also trying to get himself ahead of Team. Obviously, Team is on a lot older tyres than the others, double the age of tyres compared to many people further down in the grid. So it should be pretty much, well, hopefully, for the likes of Tycho, Jona and Xander, a pretty easy move to get themselves ahead of the Alpine as we come through. Ooh, a bit of a drift there for Tycho Hardy, a very big drift. I don't know if it was with the contact there with Jona as they went into the hairpin. Has been able to come out of the hairpin, down in towards turn top at the right-hander, then in towards the spoon curve. And considering these tyres are a lot older, there's not much really going on between these, and Timo with that DRS can still comfortably keep himself in that position for now.
Yeah, he should be okay to stay within this train. I thought he was going to get overtaken by everyone, but he's done a really good job of maintaining that P8 position ahead of Tycho Hardy and Jonas Martin, and I think they've all just got too occupied with fighting themselves. But Timur Zelenkovic has been able to maintain position because actually Daniel Koya has been able to escape up the road. He's now almost out of the DRS range of Timur Zelenkovic in behind him. So yeah, fair play to Timur. He's done well, but Daniel Koya has been able to just completely run away with that position. We'll have a look at the front of the order. We've not really checked in on them recently. Joseph Loke still leading this Grand Prix. However, Szymon Lekomski is within 3/10 of him, got really close to him in towards turn number 1. Duncan Hoffman still watching this fight. Last night, Nicolas Longue took his medium tyres 14 laps in this Grand Prix. And Duncan Hoffman, Nathan, he's still got to do 4 laps in this race. So I don't know how he's going to possibly cope towards the end here. I'm just keeping my fingers crossed that a puncture doesn't come his way.
Well, let's hope a puncture doesn't come. I don't think it will, but that possibility is still there for Duncan, of course. But I think Duncan's main aim is obviously not to really get ahead of those top two, but obviously on that final lap for those two to probably make a mistake, go a little bit too aggressive with their battling, and then allow Duncan to pass through. I think his tyres are a little bit past the point where he can actually fight for position. I think they're, the hard tyres are a little bit better at this point. But another thing that can help Duncan is the ERS. The top two, well, Siren has got a lot less ERS than Duncan has. You can see Duncan gains a lot going down in towards the Casio triangle. Oh, and a bit of a contact there. Duncan going into the back of Szymon. Szymon had to brake a little bit too late. And I think actually that was a knock-on effect of Joseph braking a bit too early. And obviously just sent Duncan in a little bit late, obviously not used to his normal braking zones. That was Tiger Hardy ahead of Timmy Zelenkiewicz. Zelenkiewicz tries to get back through, bit of a switchback, can't do so, I don't think. They go round out of the final corner. Side by side nearly, and no, doesn't make anything work now. Back to the front, Duncan Hoffman trying to get himself ahead of Szymon Lukowski, can't do so. Daniel Kaya looking to get himself ahead of Tamash going to P6, he does so. Get himself in towards that P6 position now. Team are right on the back of Tycho. Nothing he can do at the moment. These tires are pretty much dead. He's got overtake and he can keep with him, but I don't think an overtake is on the cards at all. But now Tamash Gal, he's under compromisation and being dropped through the grids. They're now lapping Max Wiesel's disconnected car.
There's a lot to unpack from what we've just seen. There was 3 separate battles there to interchange the camera to, but yeah, the front of the order. I mean, what happened down at the Casio Triangle? I think you're right in saying that Joseph Loke just broke a bit earlier than normal, and then that has sent Duncan Hoffman into the back of Szymon Lukowski. He couldn't react in time, and Joseph Loke's well within his rights to brake where he wants. He is the lead car in this Grand Prix, but if something like that happens, he has to take some note of responsibility there, because it is very difficult to react when this stuff is happening within split seconds of each other. So it is very difficult for these guys to actually get it right, but we'll see if the same thing happens heading in towards the Casio Triangle, this time by Duncan Hoffman looking for a move potentially around the outside. They're going to lock tyres in towards the corner they go. Duncan Hoffman's going to keep his footing around the outside or have the inside for the second part of the chicane, but unfortunately Szymon Lukowski, I think he's got the better grip on these tyres now, and he's going to be able to stay ahead and stay in P2.
Yeah, there's actually Martins and Zan Van Dyken fighting down for P10 and 11 as they go side by side, heading out to that final corner. Rishan Jacobs also get involved down towards that first corner. It should be an opportunity for Rishan to at least get through, and Zander defends to the inside. Rishan has to go around the outside. Can't make it work this time after, but he will go for a bit of a switch back up the inside, and they make contact, and that's Zander round, and they collect each other. And what a shame, bit of an optimistic move there from Rishan, and it puts Zander down to P12, and they lose a lot of time. So Dakiota Martins, who's still trying to get ahead of Team Zelenkiewicz, and also Tycho still trying to get ahead of Tamash Gal. As now that gap between Daniel and Mirko is coming down, but I just don't think it'll be enough at all before the end of the race for that to come down to at least even 3 seconds. Never mind a second.
They're getting silly at this point. It's getting sloppy. It's been a long race, you know, and we've been streaming for about an hour and a half at this point. But they can't let the standard slip now, because those careless moves up the inside and whatnot, you know, they are harming a lot of people's races. And it's definitely been, whilst it's been a cleaner Grand Prix, it's definitely been a very scrappy one indeed. So fingers crossed the last lap of this race is kept clean. Let's have one last look at the front runners' ERS situations. Joseph Loke's got 70%, Szymon Lukowski 56, 54 for Duncan Hoffman. However, DRS will be in effect for the AlphaTauri and the Aston Martin as they head out the exit of the final corner for the penultimate time in this Grand Prix. Joseph Loke leading the way at the front of the order. Szymon Lukowski looking to take his first points of the season and a potential first win here in PSGL PC F2 as they head down in towards turn at number 1. Szymon Lukowski just can't get close at all. Into the braking zone they go. Mirko Soriano is going to be able to get ahead of Jack West, whose medium tyres have really died out at this point. However, Jack West going to hold him up the inside. These are the two championship rivals fighting for every single point that they can here in Japan for the final time in this race through the S's sections. And I think Mirko Soriano's just got the better of Jack West there. He will be able to get himself up into P4, but I think the win, Joseph Loke, he surely got it in the bag, Nathan.
Surely, as we come through in towards turn 11, he's got to get it now. He's got to make no mistakes. That's all he's got to focus on. Duncan, you can see his tyres are starting to die. He can't fight for anything now unless one of these two make a mistake. Matthew Walder takes the fastest lap on the final lap of the race after he switched to a set of softs, but very clean battle between Mirko and Jack. That is the type of racing we want to see. Oh, Matthew's retired on track. Luckily, I'm not sure what happened now. I think he just clicked retire.
It's too late for a safety car at this point, luckily. So we are going to keep on going. I think it's going to be the final opportunity for Szymon Lukowski to take victory of this Grand Prix. He's going to be dumping all of the battery heading in towards 130R as he's closing that gap. It's now 0.3 of a second. He'll have to go for a late lunge in towards Casio Triangle. It just looks too far back. He can't go for the silly send off the exit of the final corner. I think Joseph Loke is going to be able to do it again. It's going to be his third win of the season, his second in a row. Joseph Loke is going to take victory here in Japan. Szymon Lukowski going to be able to take home P2. Duncan Hoffman holds on for P3. But wow, Mirko Soriano in 4th, 5th for Jack West. And what a race that was. I mean, it was a bit anticlimactic at the end. Joseph Loke, he was just able to save up the battery as much as he could. And, you know, no one was able to really contest him at the end of the race. But wow, what a finish there. Joseph Loke wins. Lukowski second. Third is Hoffman.
again, luckily for Duncan and Jack, those medium tyres just about held on. And I think, to be fair, even if they used hards, I don't think the result will be much different. Luckily, the mediums could just hold on with that DRS. Duncan obviously lost it on the last lap, but on the last lap, it doesn't mean much at all. You know, you're going to sit far behind anyway with those older tyres. So, very nice for Duncan to take another podium here in this championship. And now Joseph Floke will put his gap closer to Mirko Soriano, Jack West, who finished P4 and 5, and now that gap between Mirko and Jack will increase. And well, Mirko P9 to P4, that is a great race and a great redemption for what could have been possibly one of his worst races of the season.
Absolutely, it was a great job from Mirko Soriano, but no one could stop Joseph Floke today. I mean, this man, he's a class of his own at the minute. He's got 3 wins this season. That's more than anyone, I believe, at this point. I mean, it's only round number 6. We have multiple different winners. So, yeah, Joseph Floke really doing a fantastic job. And that really does beg the question, if he was here for every single race, would he be the championship leader? Well, maybe. I think that's definitely going to be a spicy topic to potentially talk about. We can talk to him in the interview room. But, yeah, that is his 3rd win of the season. He's missed 2 races so far this season, but I don't think that's phasing him whatsoever. He's going to take victory here in Japan ahead of Szymon Komski in 2nd. 3rd is Duncan Hoffland. 4th will be Mirko Soriano. 5th is Jack West. 6th for Daniel Coyer. A brilliant race from him, up 10 places in this Grand Prix. Tamas Gal in 7th. 8th for Tycho Hardy. 9th is Jona Martins. 10th, and rounding out the points, is Timur Zelenkovic. Then Zander Van Dijken just outside the points in 11th. 12th for Kamil Stachera. Rishan Jacobs 13th. 14th for Ben Shabakoni. 15th was Jan Haladej. Legend Rosenberg unfortunately disconnected in 16th. And then your retirements today were Matthew Order, Max Wiesel, Yannick Schmidt, and Andrei Tarabukin. Brings us to the end of this Japanese Grand Prix, and what can we say? Joseph Floke, 3rd win of the season, Nathan. Looks unstoppable at the minute.
Yeah, and then like I said before, it does make you think, well, if he was here every race, would he be championship leader? I would say most likely yes, as I think we've actually got a couple people in the waiting room ready to come up, Duncan and Joseph.
Bring us over to the interview screen now then, and we can drag in these guys. Just give me a second here. And actually, no, they're already in the lobby. Eager Beavers, these 2 are. Nathan, I'm going to let you talk to Duncan Hoffland first now.
Well, welcome in, Duncan. Can you hear us?
Absolutely.
Very nice. So, another podium. Very nice to take away from this round. Talk us through, how did the qualifying race go, and also with the strategy onto the mediums, do you think maybe with the hards you could have done something a little bit better and hopefully got yourself into the top 2?
Well, qualifying obviously was pretty good, starting P4, so happy with that. And it's usually a weak point of mine, so that was a good starting position. Then obviously, start of the race, Max Wiesel binned it into the wall, so I had to close the gap to the cars I had, and they were on softs, I was on hard, so I didn't expect to do that, but still managed it to do so. Then obviously VSC came out, and yeah, I had to box because you are just losing too much time if you stay out. I thought it was a mistake to box onto the mediums, but at the end it worked pretty well because I managed to close the gap again to Joseph and the AlphaTauri. And yeah, I mean, at the end I didn't really play it smart. I was just staying behind for too long, but still podium, so nothing to complain about.
Yeah, and it also brings your gap closer, only a little bit, by a couple of points, to Jack and Mirko. So do you think now the championship fight is back on? Obviously, you missed it last time in Austria, and to be fair, considering you missed 1 race, you're still not that far back. So, yeah, very nice. And do you think you can still fight for it?
Well, I will miss Spa and Jeddah as well, so it's going to be quite hard to do so. But I mean, if past 2 races, both a podium, can be happy with that. And as long as I just can put myself at the front, keep getting more podiums, that's just maximizing results, and that's all what matters for me.
Yeah, of course. And Dan, anything from you quickly?
No questions from me, but really well done, Duncan, on this race. It was a pretty difficult one from your point of view based on the strategy alone and the VSC not really playing into your hands, but really well done on capturing the podium, and we hope later on in the season we could talk to you once again.
Thanks, guys.
See you later. Bye.
Right, and that leaves us then with our race winner, Joseph Floke. Can you hear me?
I sure can.
Alright, I'm going to turn you up just quickly in Discord
Very
before,
quiet.
yeah, just before getting the stream started. Hopefully everyone can hear you properly now, but we'll talk about your qualifying run first. You started, well, you know, it was the second run. Everyone else did their third. No one was able to beat you. How'd that feel to get that run on pole position?
Well, my first lap I did was invalid, but it had a big mistake in as well. It was still a .7, so I knew that I had enough to obviously improve. I was a bit disappointed. I was, you know, a little bit not faster than what I did, because I felt like I could have gone faster. But you know, it is. I'm not going to complain. It was obviously enough for pole. You know, it was a pretty decent lap, obviously, especially for when it was in the session, and you know, yeah, I was quite happy with it.
And of course, heading into the race, you decided to start on a set the soft compound of tyre. What guided your strategy decision there?
I don't really. I just was just looking on Race Director, to be honest, just seeing what everyone else was going for, and I saw most people were on the softs kind of around me. Obviously, there was the hard runners of Jack and obviously Duncan as well, but you know, it was one of those where I was like, well, the track position is so key around here. So I was just like, well, as long as I've got the battery, I was running really low wings as well. So, you know, it helped big time in terms of regenerating ERS and stuff like that. And it just made it a lot easier to stay in front once I was there.
Of course, now taking this third victory so far this season, myself and Nathan, we touched on this at the end of the race. If you were here for 2 races that you missed, you think you could potentially be leading this championship?
I think so, yes. But, you know, I can't make every round of the year. I don't think I ever have in a league. So, you know, it's always something I've contended with. But, you know, I think I'm pretty close now in terms of the championship. And, you know, a few more of these results and I'll be right back in it. I'll probably miss 1 or 2 maybe again towards the end of the season. But with how fast I've, you know, closed the gap in again, after how far back I was after the 2 races I missed, you know, I was quite happy with that. The results that I've had while I've been here, you know, have been pretty good, and I can't really complain with them. So, yeah, just got to keep working on it, keep bringing that gap down in the championship, and hopefully we'll be fighting for it by the end.
Yeah, well, really well done for this evening. It was a pleasure to watch you drive and a pleasure to speak to you once again. Nathan, anything from you?
No, nothing from me. No questions at all. But yeah, again, another great drive, Joseph. Like what we've seen, WR always performing to the best. So yeah, well done.
Thank you very much.
Alright, so thank you, Joseph Loke, for joining us in the commentary box. We'll let you get away and enjoy that victory. But yeah, really well done to you there, as we'll bring us back over. As I'll just get my OBS back up. I'll bring us back over then to the intermission scene. We could digest that race a little bit more. You know, it wasn't the most exciting, but you know, Japan isn't really a track that provides the best racing. But I think the main thing, for the most part, Nathan, it was a pretty clean run.
It was, from many people. I think there's a few issues here and there, but I think sometimes it gets a bit overlooked. I think there's always been issues in league racing with people driving, you know, dirty, or the driving standards not being too clean. But I think in general, it was all right. I think we've seen worse, and you know, we've obviously seen better. But especially the guys at the front, like Mirko and Jack on that last lap, that was really, really great from them. Very clean racing, very close side by side. So people are showing it can be done, and they did a great job at it. And yet again, there was drivers further down the field also having some good moves, some little bit, you know, over ambitious. But also that is the type of track where a lot of incidents occur. It's not a very friendly track, especially when it comes to battling. So yeah, it's one of those. But I think in general, it's a step forward. I think in the driving standards here.
Absolutely, and next week we head to Imola, similar to Suzuka in the sense that, you know, we're not going to have too much overtaking. There's only one DRS zone, if I remember correctly, around that track, although it is a very long straight heading in towards Tamburello. There's also a lot of elevation change there, so it is, in essence, a pretty similar track to Suzuka. How are you feeling about going there?
Well, Imola is a track I really like. It's a great track. It's one of my favourites, I think, in general, just because of the iconicness of it, and I love the track layout. And obviously, you got the corners like Aqua Minerale, which are really difficult, and it's lovely to see drivers try and tackle those corners at the best of their ability. But I think when it comes to race, it's quite difficult. You've got pretty much one chance, and that is down into that second corner. If you can't make an overtake there, you're pretty much doomed for the whole of the lap, unless someone's on about 10 lap older tyres. So it's going to be difficult for racing, so I think around there, qualifying is key. I would not be surprised if drivers build their setups to qualifying, because I think around there it's a bit like Monaco. You need to get that track position to do well in the race.
Yeah, absolutely. Track position, like it is around Suzuka, very key in Imola. We'll see how all the drivers contend with that heading in towards that race, but that is still a week from now. I believe that is everything that we need to say in the commentary box this evening. Thank you everyone very much for tuning in this evening. If you haven't already, please do consider subscribing to the PSGL YouTube channel and leaving a like just down below. It's the big red button beneath to subscribe. You cannot miss it whatsoever, and it really does help us out. And please do follow us on Twitter and Instagram. It'll be at PremierSimGL. If you want to stay up to date with all your PSGL news, you can join the Discord. The link is in the description. Thank you to GT Omega for sponsoring our stream this evening. It was a very fun one. I've been Danfield, and we've had Nathan Richards as well. Thank you everyone for your kind comments. This stream will see you next week in Imola. Thank you everyone for tuning in, and good night.
Good night.
Desperately trying to hang on. He's got the inside. Oh, here he's through on the left-hand side. Hooks the apex, gets on the power nicely, and that is job done. Jarno Opmeer now to the last couple of corners now. His finest drive, his greatest drive, and he's done it at the Circuit of the Americas. He returns to the top step of the podium. Once again, the GOAT is back. Jarno Opmeer wins the US Grand Prix in a stunning Grand Prix.
Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup though. Started climbing my pole, she got me locked in on cup though. Cocaine